For many years, the galaxy lived in fear. The Varnak Empire ruled with cold iron hands. They did not speak, they demanded. They did not ask, they took. Planets that resisted were burned. Cities were turned to dust. Families were broken apart. Whole species vanished. And still, the Varnak kept growing. No one knew where they came from. Some said they lived in the dark side of the stars. Others believed they were born from war itself. Their ships were black and sharp like blades. There, soldiers wore masks. Their voices were metal. People across the galaxy called them one name in secret, the Shadows. They controlled half the galaxy. And they wanted more. No government could stand against them. No fleet lasted more than minutes. The Varnak technology was too strong, their machines too fast, and their minds too cold. One by one, systems surrendered. Peace was never real. It was only the space between pain. On the planet Juno 7, people lived in silence. Speaking against the Varnak meant death. Looking up at the sky brought fear. What if today was the day the Varnak returned? An old woman named Nara sat beside a ruined statue of freedom. She had lived through 2 invasions. She remembered the old flags, the old songs. She looked up and whispered, "Will no one fight them?" A child beside her asked, "Why does no one help?" Nara closed her eyes, "Because no one can." But the galaxy was about to change. Far beyond Varnak borders, past dead zones and quiet stars, something moved. A single ship, cold and dark, floated through space. Silent, alone. Its hull was unlike anything seen before. Smooth, black, shaped like a spearhead, but larger than a city. Its engines made no sound. Its shields glowed faint blue. One scanner picked it up in the Ursa sector, a Varnak patrol zone. The message was short. Unknown vessel. Origin, Earth. Name, HSS Eclipse. Heading, Varnak territory. The Varnak commander laughed. Earth? That backwater rock? Didn't they fall centuries ago? But the ship kept moving. Another scout was sent to scan it. Within seconds, the scout vanished. No explosion, no sound. Just gone. Varnak officials gathered in their black towers. "What is this eclipse?" they asked. No answer. "Is it alone?" "Yes." "Why has it come?" "Unknown." Still, they did not worry. It was only one ship. But rumors spread fast. On mining planets, workers whispered, "Did you hear?" A Terran ship entered their space. On trade stations, smugglers joked, "One Earth ship, and they're sending patrols." But Nara, on Juno 7, felt something. She looked up and smiled for the first time in years. On the bridge of the eclipse, a figure stood. He wore no armor. Just a plain black coat with a single silver stripe. He looked human, but his eyes, they held centuries of pain. A quiet voice spoke inside the ship, AI-driven. "We have crossed into enemy space, Commander." He replied softly, "Begin the silent protocol. We end this now." The ship vanished from normal scans. The eclipse had arrived. Varnak High Command met in silence. Their chambers were dark, cold, and carved from obsidian stone. Across the long black table, holoscreens showed the image of the unknown ship, HSS Eclipse. A senior officer, wearing a bone-white mask, tapped the screen. One ship. No escorts, no transmissions, no challenge. It moves deeper into our territory. Without fear. Another hissed, "It is a probe, or a distraction." A third leaned forward. "A test. From Earth?" Someone asked with mock laughter. The silence returned. Centuries ago, Earth had vanished from galactic news. Their colonies were quiet, their diplomats gone. No one had seen Terrans in Varnak space for over 200 years. But now this ship appeared strong, silent, and unafraid. They sent another scout, this time 2 ships, each with high-speed cloaking and long-range weapons. They approached the eclipse slowly, hiding behind asteroid fields and using old war tactics. They circled it from opposite sides, calculated everything. One gave the signal to fire, but just before they pressed the trigger, both ships froze mid-flight. Their engines powered off. Their weapons shut down. Inside the cockpits, the screens went black. Then a message flashed: stand down. It was a human voice, calm, soft, emotionless. The next second, both scout ships vanished from radar. Back at high command, alarms screamed. Across the galaxy, people watched with growing interest. In the trade hubs of Delta Roa, an alien merchant played the recording of the human voice again and again. He only said 2 words. He whispered, stand down. And they were gone. On a hidden rebel base in Xerian Nebula, commanders who had spent years hiding from Varnic forces stared at the new data. A young alien whispered, is this the beginning of something? An older leader nodded. No, it's the return of something. Old. The Varnac Council ordered a small fleet 10 battlecruisers to intercept the eclipse. The 10 ships moved quickly, forming a triangle formation around the Terran warship. The Varnac commander demanded, identify yourself and your purpose. No response. He gave the order, target engines, disable. The Varnac cruisers fired. The energy beams hit but bounced off invisible shields, causing no damage. Before they could fire again, the eclipse reacted. Its main cannon opened slowly smooth. Quiet, terrifying. It released one silent pulse of blue light. One. And all 10 battle cruisers vanished. No explosions. No floating wreckage. Just gone. The stars returned to silence. Inside the eclipse, the human figure stared at the screen. The AI spoke. Enemy fleet neutralized. He didn't smile. He didn't move. He simply said, continue course. Varnic. Systems fell into panic. This wasn't a rogue ship. This wasn't a probe. This was a statement. And only now did they realize what it meant. In the old records of the Galactic archives, one line from Terran history was whispered even in war rooms. Humanity does not knock twice. In secret, the Varnic War Council gathered again. Their leader, a being with 6 red eyes and veins of silver light, watched the new footage. He whispered, it's not the ship that's dangerous. One of his guards asked, then what is? The leader said, it's the mind inside, cold, focused, human. On a small moon near the Varnac border, a slave boy named Kilo saw the recordings on a smuggled device. He didn't know who the human was. He didn't care. He simply looked at the sky and said, he came. The eclipse kept moving, quiet, constant, unstoppable. And the galaxy watched. Because for the first time in living memory, the Varnac were afraid. Asterisk, and somewhere in the heart of the Varnac Empire, fear returned for the first time in generations. But they didn't know it yet. They had ruled through fear for decades. But this was the beginning of the end. Asterisk. The Varnac Empire had not lost a fleet in over 100 years. But now, 10 of their battle cruisers were gone, erased by a single human ship. It wasn't war. It was surgical silence. High command screamed for answers. Panic spread through the command channels. Codes were updated. Old weapons reactivated. Emergency fleets were pulled from deep space. In every dark room of the Varnac Empire, one question echoed. How is one ship doing this? They studied the eclipse's moves again. Its heat signatures didn't match any class. Its weapons weren't listed. Its shields were like nothing they'd ever seen. One old strategist finally whispered, this isn't a normal warship. It's a ghost, a message. Still, they laughed behind closed doors. We are the Varnak. We do not fear toys. And so they sent the Iron Spear Armada 300 ships, the pride of the Varnak. The Eclipse waited. It did not move. It did not charge weapons. It simply hovered in orbit around a dead planet, calm, patient, silent. When the Iron Spear Armada arrived, they surrounded it completely. The Varnak warlord in charge opened a channel and sneered, "Surrender, Terran. You are surrounded." The Eclipse did not respond. "Your silence is weakness." The warlord growled. He raised his claw. 300 warships powered their weapons at once. Fire. Space turned into a storm. Red beams. Plasma torpedoes. Sonic disruptors. All fired. At the Eclipse, for 15 seconds, the stars turned red. But when the light faded, the Eclipse still floated. Untouched. Unshaken. A low hum began from the human ship. Then came a single blue ripple, barely visible. It spread from the center of the ship, like a calm wave. And as it passed each Varnak vessel, the ships shut down. By one, engines dead, weapons silent. Lights out. Communication lost. Under a minute, the Iron Spear Armada was gone. All 300 ships. Destroyed. Disabled. Disarmed. Dead in space. The Varnak warlord floated helpless in the dark. No control. No escape. Just silence. He stared at the Eclipse through his view screen. The ship didn't even point a weapon. It just hovered. Watching. In the outer colonies, news spread like wildfire. The phrase, "One ship, 300 kills," lit up every communication feed. Some believed it was fake. Others called it divine. On resistance worlds, people screamed in joy. On slave planets, chains were broken in secret. And on the silent planet of Juno 7, Nara stared at the stars. She whispered, "He didn't come to fight. He came to end." Inside the Eclipse, the AI spoke again. "Targets neutralized. Galaxy listening." The human nodded once. "Good." He pressed a button. A signal was sent, not to the Varnak, not to governments, but to every civilian channel in the galaxy. The message was simple. To those ruled by fear, stand. To those who hide, rise. To the shadows, this is your last hour. On the capital world of the Varnak, alarms echoed like never before. They could no longer deny it. The Eclipse was not just a ship. It was a decision. And that decision had just been made. Asterisk, the Varnak Empire had never received a direct message from a human. Until now. The signal echoed across thousands of systems. No encryption, no special code. Just a clean, steady voice in every language the galaxy knew. To those ruled by fear, stand. To those who hide, rise. To the shadows, this is your last hour. The message came from the Eclipse. No more hiding. No more guessing. The galaxy now had a name. And a reason to hope. In the slums of Kelmer 9, a child repeated the words aloud. His mother, a miner with broken hands, dropped her tool and wept. "It's real," she whispered. "He's real." In the slave camps of Uri Delta, prisoners stared at the sky. A guard shouted for them to return to work, but they didn't move. Even DIDN D. Everyone listened. At Varnak High Command, chaos broke loose. This message was seen in 47 sectors. A technician cried, "Shut it down." General screamed. "We can't," someone replied. It's echoing through civilian channels, public nets, ancient relay towers, even emergency frequencies. Where did it start? The answer came with a shiver. The Eclipse. Still in orbit. Still not moving. The Varnak Council of 9 gathered in their sky fortress. The walls, once filled with pride, now felt tight, cold, uncertain. One elder asked, "Do we know who commands it?" No name. No signal trace. Just ... human. Another hissed, "Why now? Why return after so many years of silence?" The youngest counselor stood and spoke carefully. "We ignored Earth. We called them primitive. But we forgot one thing. Everyone turned to him. They don't start wars, but they always finish them." In desperation, the Varnik activated their top flagship, the Maw of Wrath, a beast of a vessel 20 times larger than Eclipse, covered in weapon towers, shielded by pulsar armor, armed with an AI that could predict enemy moves before they happened. At its helm stood Warlord Krall, the most feared commander in Varnek space. He had never lost a battle. He smiled as the Maw of Wrath prepared to launch. The Eclipse, however, remained still. Its commander stood alone in the viewing chamber, watching the stars. The AI broke the silence. Enemy flagship detected. High threat. Estimated arrival, 4 hours. The human didn't flinch. Let it come. The AI paused, then asked a question it had never spoken before. "Why are we not afraid?" The human answered softly, "Because fear only works until someone stands up." Across the galaxy, things began to shift. Small resistance groups in deep space sent messages. "We are ready." Pirate fleets changed course, now flying under old Terran colors. A science vessel from the Outer Rim turned and began broadcasting the Eclipse's message. Even exiled AIs, once hunted, came online to spread the signal farther. This was not just one man's fight anymore. It had become a movement. On a broken world called Zalith, 2 alien brothers watched as their city prepared for evacuation. Their leaders feared the Eclipse would bring war to their system. But one of the brothers refused to leave. He looked at the sky and said, "I don't want to run again. I want to see what happens next." As the Maw of Wrath neared, Krall sharpened his claws and laughed. "One Terran ship dares challenge me?" He roared to his crew. Let him see what real power looks like. But what Krall didn't know was that the Eclipse wasn't built to fight fair. It was built to end wars before they started. And so, as 2 warships moved toward each other, in the dark sea of stars, the galaxy held its breath again, because now it wasn't about who had the bigger ship. It was about who had already won before the battle even began. Asterisk. The Maw of Wrath tore through space like a beast freed from chains. It was the largest ship ever built by the Varnek Empire, black as night, shaped like a spearhead with rotating weapon cores, and wrapped in storm-like shields that bent light itself. It did not glide. It thundered. Inside its command bridge, Warlord Krall stood tall. His skin was metal gray, his voice like grinding stone. "Target the Eclipse," he ordered. "Full lock." His officers hesitated. One dared to speak. "Commander." The last. Fleet 300 ships vanished. Krall didn't blink. "Then I will make sure we leave nothing behind to vanish." Far ahead, the Eclipse remained silent. No movements. No weapon ports open. Just floating, calm, like a stone in a stream. Inside, the human commander stood at the viewing window. Hands behind his back, the AI's voice came through. "The Maw of Wrath is within visual range. Power levels ... 187% above standard war class." The human whispered, "Not enough. They are scanning us now. Let them." "You are certain?" He nodded. "They fear what they don't understand, and they don't understand what silence means." The Maw of Wrath fired first. No warning. A direct hit. A blinding storm of red energy launched from its main cannon designed to shatter moons. The shot hit the Eclipse straight on. A pause, followed. Silence. No damage. No shield flare. Nothing. The Maw's bridge turned cold. "What?" Krall muttered. And the Eclipse moved. Just once. It shifted 5 degrees left. And vanished from view. 4. A moment the maw floated alone. Then the eclipse reappeared right behind it. One moment empty space. The next doom. Krall's crew screamed, turning weapons around, trying to lock on. But systems failed. Turrets spun wildly. Targeting sensors crashed. Then came the eclipse's message. You brought war. I bring the end of it. From the belly of the eclipse, a light formed, not a laser, not a missile, a sphere of gravity. It pulsed once, and the maw of wrath began to collapse, inward metal twisting, engines snapping, screams echoing through the communication bands. No explosion, no debris. The Varnic flagship folded into itself, like paper burned by invisible fire. And then silence, complete silence. Back on the Varnock capital, the live transmission cut out mid-screen. The generals sat frozen. No one spoke. No one even breathed. 300 ships. And now their most powerful warship. All gone. By one Terran vessel. On distant moons, in forgotten mining stations, on drifting colonies. People watched and wept. They weren't tears of fear. They were tears of release. The fear they had lived with for decades was breaking. Inside the eclipse, the human closed his eyes. The AI whispered, "Target erased." The human said nothing. He simply turned away from the window and walked down the dim corridor. The lights dimmed behind him. In that quiet moment, the Varnic Empire faced a truth it had never imagined. It had ruled with fear for centuries. But now, it had met something stronger than fear, human will. And it had no weapon against that. Fear had always been a tool of the Varnic Empire. They used it like a weapon sharper than any blade, stronger than any laser. With fear, they didn't just win battles. They ended resistance before it even began. But now, fear no longer served them. It turned around and began to devour its masters. Across Varnic-controlled space, panic spread like wildfire. Commanders refused to leave their ships. Soldiers requested reassignment to distant sectors far from the eclipse. Entire battalions went dark, faking communication failures to avoid being called into battle. One officer even destroyed his own fleet's engine. Drives just to stay still. In the capital city of Veltarn, the streets were silent. No patrols marched. No propaganda played. Only rumors. The maw of wrath, gone without a sound. The eclipse speaks only once, then you vanish. It's not a ship, it's judgment. Inside the grand archives of the Varnock War Library, a low-level analyst found something buried deep. A Terran military record, over 400 years old. Describes something called Operation Eclipse, a contingency-class warship. No crew, besides a single commander, built not to fight wars, but to end empires. The file was incomplete, redacted, scarred by age, but one line remained clear. If the stars fall silent, the eclipse will speak last. The analyst ran to deliver the data, but was stopped halfway by a black-armored Varnock guard. The analyst looked up, terrified. The guard said nothing. He simply took the file and walked away slowly. Even they had begun to fear what would happen if they delivered bad news. On a far-off world called Grendari, a Varnock colony leader gathered his staff. He looked tired, not from work, but from pretending. He stared at the stars on the screen and said softly, "We have spent our lives forcing the galaxy to kneel. But now, one man stands, and we all feel smaller than dust." He stood and made a decision few Varnock had ever made. He ordered a transmission. "We renounce the Empire. We will not fight this Terran. We will not defend lies." That message, once impossible, was the first. Defection. It would not be the last. On human colonies that had stayed quiet for generations, something stirred. Old warships powered up. Outdated bunkers lit their lights for the first time in centuries. Veterans came forward, offering data and memories of Earth's true strength. A symbol was painted on walls, scratched into metal, even burned into Varnock banners. The eclipse marked. It spread faster than any broadcast, not because it was ordered, but because people believed. Inside the eclipse, the human commander read the reports. The AI's voice broke the silence. The Varnock are breaking. 2 more systems have surrendered without conflict. 1 capital fleet has gone missing. The human didn't celebrate. He simply asked, "Is the message being heard?" Yes, not just by the Varnock. Everyone is listening. Good, he replied. Then he gave a new order. Plot a course for the heart of their empire. On the Varnock homeworld, the council met in secret. One of them whispered, "It's coming here." Another screamed, "We must destroy it." How? Someone asked. Every fleet sent. Gone, without a fight. The room went quiet. For the first time in their long, cruel history, the Varnock faced a future they couldn't control. Not with war, not with threats, not even with fear. And in the stars above them, the eclipse turned, its engines silent. Its course locked. It was coming, and nothing, not weapons, not politics, not terror, would stop it. Asterisk. The skies above the Varnock homeworld were always filled with ships, dark, sharp, and cold. But today, there was only one. The eclipse arrived without sound, without warning. It did not bring a fleet. It did not need one. Hovered above the planet. Like a shadow that had come alive, Varnock defense stations lit up. Cannons powered on. Missile bays opened. Dozens of commanders shouted into combs, "Target the Terran ship." But not a single weapon fired. Not because of orders, because no one dared. In the city below, crowds stood frozen. Children clung to parents. Merchants abandoned their shops. Soldiers watched the sky with shaking hands. Everyone waited for the first shot, the first explosion, the end. But it never came. Instead, a single message echoed across every speaker, every screen, every private channel. Your reign is over. Lay down your arms. You will not be asked twice. The voice was human, calm, not loud, not angry. Just final. In the Grand Citadel, the Varnock Council panicked. One screamed, "He'll destroy the capital." Another roared, "Send the codes. Launch the planetary shields." But the main screen flickered, showing a blue light. A countdown had begun. Not for missiles, not for death. It simply read, "Surrender in 300 seconds." Council guards turned to their leaders, confused. One guard, barely an adult, lowered his rifle. "Are we fighting a man?" he asked, "or something more?" The eldest counselor stood up slowly. "We were taught that power rules the stars," he said. He looked up at the hovering eclipse. "But this is not power. This is judgment." He stepped forward, alone, and raised his voice into the sky. "We surrender." And just like that, it was over. No battle, no war, not just one voice, and the fall of an empire. Across the galaxy, Varnock banners fell. In slave colonies. Chains were broken. In military outposts. Weapons were dropped. The darkness that had gripped the stars for so long began to lift. The eclipse didn't land. It didn't celebrate. It simply turned and vanished into the stars. Like a ghost that had finished its task. In a quiet room aboard the eclipse, the human commander sat alone. The AI spoke gently. "They have surrendered. The message has reached every system." The human said nothing. He looked out at the stars and whispered, "It was never about destruction. It was about reminding them that someone will always stand." The AI was silent for a moment, then asked, "What now?" The man stood. "Now," he said with a small nod, Now we disappear until we're needed again. And somewhere, on a small world once ruled by fear, a child looked up and saw a silver light streak across the night sky. He smiled and whispered, "The warship came, and it gave us back the stars